against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever, Warren.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Yo, welcome to another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live, our number one resource for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, breaking news, culture, medic warfare. We will be your guide through the separation of money and state. Wait, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Simply Bitcoin, the most watched daily Bitcoin live show on YouTube, Rumble, and X. Better said, the most watched Bitcoin only YouTube live show on Rumble and X. Anyways, it's going to be a great show. We had a massive bank throwing out these crazy predictions, and it seems like you guys really like the prediction episode, so we like to cover them sometimes. So there's this analyst from the Standard Bank that predicted that Bitcoin could reach potentially $150,000 per coin by the end of the year, which, I mean, from like a percentage term thing, it's not that crazy, right? What is that, like maybe like a 2x from here, roughly a little bit more than that. So, and things are a little bit different, obviously, because of the ETF and because of just clown world accelerating, the deficit spending happening here in the US. It's a lot of people in the market is anticipating that the Fed is going to, lower rates towards the end of the year. The money printer goes burr once again, and that tends to be good for Bitcoin. So we have the video for you guys to play it. And then another topic that I want to talk about is a topic that plays close to my heart, and it's a theme that we play on. It's a theme that we talk a lot about on Simply Bitcoin Live, which is this idea that we are living through the great disintermediation, the disintermediation of information and the disintermediation of money. And the largest broadcasters in the world actually did a show together. And of course, I'm talking about Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson. Now, before anyone gets like upset about that, it's like by numbers, these two are the most popular content creators, broadcasters, podcasters on the face of the planet, including getting significantly more numbers than the legacy corporate media. And this is something that we've been hammering home over, these last couple weeks or so, this idea that this last couple months or so, or year, really, this idea that you are now the media, Anon. Like, you are now the media. The media isn't the New York Times. The media isn't CNN. The media isn't CNBC. You are the media. And because you are the media, that comes with a great deal of responsibility. Even if you don't have a really big following, the fact is that social media has given you a platform. It's given you a voice where before you didn't really have one. So what I would say is leverage that power. So anytime, we get these attacks, because that's really what they are, from the legacy media, whether it's the New York Times article, the Wall Street Journal article, politicians, the Treasury Secretary, or, these central bankers basically gaslighting everyone and blaming everything and anything and anyone but themselves for inflation and all these things. It's important that you make your voice heard in the comments and say, hey, I'll meme them. Like the internet, we have home field advantage on the internet, and it's really important that, we use that to our advantage. So Tucker and Jogan were talking about the rise of independent content versus the legacy media. Also, technically it was yesterday, but yesterday, or say today, 13 years ago, Satoshi Nakamoto finally announced that he was moving on to other things. So he basically disappeared. That was 13 years ago today. Really, in the grand scheme of things, like not that long ago. Also, in other news we want to cover as well is PayPal is proposing quote unquote green Bitcoin mining. But I think it's part of something a little bit more insidious that shout out to Mark Goodwin and Whitney Webb actually wrote an article for BMag, and they were kind of talking about this, and it's just kind of a coincidence that you keep hearing this whole what is a green miner, and we like to connect the dots here at Simply Bitcoin. So one of the proposals coming out of Norway, it was like last week, essentially they wanted to ban certain data centers. You literally had the head of energy like go on the record and say like Bitcoin miners are not welcome here. They're associated with emissions. And what's really interesting about that is that again, Bitcoin mining, like the vast majority, no, all of Bitcoin mining in Norway is powered by quote unquote renewable energy sources, but they still wanted to ban it. And I think that this whole green thing and this whole renewable energies, really what it is, it just provides air cover for politicians stepping in and basically getting to dictate what energy use is okay and what energy use is not okay. And it's incredibly important now that you're the media, Anon, that you call it out for what it is. It is tyranny. It is control. It is collectivism, right? That's what it is. You know, when a government steps in and says, okay, you know, because a Bitcoin miner, really what it is, it's like a high energy using toaster. Like it really does. It just emits hot air in the back. You know, hot air comes out of the back. You know, it uses energy. But when the government steps in and gets to say what energy use is okay and what energy use is not okay, that's a problem. And what they've done is they've kind of psyoped a lot of people into thinking, oh, wow, these are the good guys. And the reason that they're the good guys is because they're for green stuff and therefore, you know, the environment and therefore all these things. And that's kind of like this justification. They're hiding behind this veneer of moral virtue in order to justify these, you know, these tyrannical actions, right? I don't want to live in a world where the government gets to decide what energy use is okay and what energy use is not okay. And not to mention the fact that I would even go on a limb and say that Bitcoin mining is actually going to be one of the main catalysts for innovation in renewable energies, because Bitcoin mining makes renewable energy viable without the need of government subsidy. Right. So it's really important to like not get psyoped here, because you might have that aunt or that uncle that's like, yo, this Bitcoin mining stuff, it's a waste of energy, blah, 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 proof of stake, blah, blah, blah. And it's important that you step in and you say, like, no, you're armed with the truth, you're armed with the facts, and you're able to, rebuttal them in real time. Guys, this is Narrative Trench Warfare. We played you guys a video, 2 videos yesterday of an MMA fighter talking about Austrian economics. And we played you guys a video of an anchor on Fox Business literally telling you that the Federal Reserve is only benefiting rich people. So we're definitely making progress, but we're not quite there. So it's important to keep up the pressure. Arm yourself with the truth. Arm yourself with the facts. Become a sovereign individual. Take Bitcoin into self-custody. And if enough of us do it, we'll win. Anyways, no more delay. I do want to my legendary co-host, who's always optimistic, kind of like a smile today, stole my 2 Viva Bitcoin hats. I won't forgive him. Optimus Fields, how you doing, bro?
You don't wear hats, bro. These are mine now. These are my hats. Man, everything's good. We almost made it through another week. It's Wednesday. Happy hump day, everyone. And
what?
Man, Bitcoin's running, you know, the sun is up, things are great. Life couldn't be better on a Bitcoin standard. I don't see why people complain out there. We have the tools to live a happy life now. It is saving in Bitcoin. It is, you know, using Nostr. It's literally getting good food. The plan is so simple, guys. The follow through may be harder, but everything's great on a Bitcoin standard. Anyways, on that note, let's bring in our guest today, Nico. We got Derek Ross, Nostr advocate, creator of NostrPlebs.com. So we kind of have a theme this week, man. We've been talking about Nostr a lot this week, so we're going to double down on that. But anyways, Derek, how you doing this morning?
Amazing. Happy to be here. Happy to be apparently joining your Nostr Talk week. You know, that's great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, man. This is good. I actually caught Odell on Bitcoin Veterans last night. I just finished it this morning. And man, Odell just going so hard on everyone still on Twitter. So I'm glad that we're continuing the Nostr conversation.
He has become such a Nostr evangelist, like over the past year. In the beginning, he wasn't too active. I'll say beginning, like a year and a half ago, he wasn't too active on Nostr. But once he got it and he went full hardcore Nostr, like he understands it and he pounds that purple drum every single chance he gets. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, dude. And it's also come like a really long way. So, you know, I remember when, and I'm not going to name any specific apps or anything like that.
Primal's the GOAT.
But
it is. What makes Primal so great is the fact that it has a built-in wallet. It just makes zapping a no-brainer, right? Like you can just exchange value for value. You can do all your Bitcoin tips, payments, all your Zaps, everything, all in the same app. It just makes it so much easier to do.
Yeah, I mean, and also like, so yes, it has a built-in wallet, which is awesome. But also the UI, like it's significantly improved kind of like the user experience. And because like people have to remember, like it's working completely differently than Twitter. That's just kind of like this central entity. So usually when something's centralized, you have like this total control over creating like the most sweet user experience because it's all coming from like a centralized server. But like, when you're working on top of Nostr, you don't have that advantage playing for you. So things work a little bit differently. It's like the on the user experience side, you could almost make the argument that it feels a little bit more clunky. But I love what Primal did is that it to really improved a lot of that clunkiness and made it go away. And it feels like very similar to the X experience, the Twitter experience in a way. It's very, very close. And I'm highly enjoying it. I tell Opti this all the time. You want my unfiltered thoughts? I'm pretty active on Nostr. I try to post at least once a day. Like go to my Nostr profile,
bro.
Go to my Nostr profile. Go to Nico Moran at primal.net. And
you don't know your NPub? You can't recite that?
LARP, bro. You're LARPing.
No, I don't. Go to Nico Moran at primal.net. And yeah, I mean it's such a great like awesome experience, and I don't really care. I just put on my thoughts. Like I just put my thoughts on, and I just send it out, and then people zap me for my thoughts. It's very different. It's great. It's very different to Twitter. Twitter's become like a little bit more corporate. It's become a little bit more businessy. They had the terrible censorship for a while, and it came out that they were working with the US government to censor certain type of political speech, which was absolutely nuts and crazy. The Twitter files, and then that crazy interview with Mike Benz and Tucker. So, I mean, that can't really happen on Nostr. Like there is no one to tap on and be like, yo, censor this person or throttle this person. Like that doesn't work on there.
And if one client or one relay decided they wanted to do that, because that absolutely could happen, right? Like let's say, for example, Primal, since we were talking about it, if they wanted to censor you for some reason, that's fine. Primal can do that because there's dozens of other clients. There's hundreds of other relays. You can run your own client. You can run your own relay. You can be sovereign over your social graph. So no one can censor you. People can censor you, but you can't be censored across the whole entire protocols because it's open.
You can't just be othered. Like you can't just be deleted off the face of the planet which is like currently how the current system, like the current platform works. I mean, and to be fair, and a lot of people give me crap for this, but Elon's done. I think he's done some incredible work on Twitter for free speech, but because it's a centralized entity, he's getting a tremendous amount of pressure from governments worldwide, Europe, Brazil, the United States, like even the US government, right? They hate this guy. They're like, no, we can't have millions upon individuals communicating peer to peer. We can't have that. That's a danger to democracy.
Elon also does some interesting things with Twitter that are kind of censorship related. That I like to say that Elon likes to be Nostr's like chief marketing officer, because he likes to advertise and do things that promote openness and promote the open protocol of Nostr and the censorship resistance of Nostr. Like whenever Elon made changes to Twitter's API, and a year and a half ago, whenever Elon threatened to ban linking your Facebook, Instagram, Nostr, LinkedIn profiles, and the things he's done with limiting free speech, was it in India or Turkey or both, one or the other before, like Elon,
he doesn't have a choice. That's what I'm saying. Like in the India one, sorry to interrupt you, but in the India one, that was the Indian government that put pressure on him. And
but he complied.
How could he not? It's a centralized entity. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Is
that's my point. So he complies, and then he advertises the reason that Nostr is good, because that can't happen on Nostr.
Yeah, and I mean, and I also think that like that also puts a massive target on Nostr's back, and it puts a massive target on Bitcoin's back. And we all have to kind of zoom out and really understand what it is we're living through. As a species, as mankind, we're slowly transitioning from the industrial age to the information age. That's what's happening. And the great disintermediation is happening on the information front and on the money front. And these nation states that have been used to operating in a certain way, including the United States, they're freaking out. They're like, holy crap, people are just like doing their own research, and they're just not tuning into Fox or CNN and just listening to, the accepted narrative. Like, this is unacceptable. This is crazy.
Don't trust the experts, Nico. Don't trust go trust the experts. Sorry.
It's just nuts. And then it creates an environment where a big portion of the population starts to become critical thinkers because they start doing their own research. And I think that's very dangerous to governments that have been operating in a certain way, right? So anyways, guys, it's gonna be a great show. We give you a pretty long opening kind of discussion. But before we jump into the show, I do want to give a very special shout out to the Bitcoin company that powers the show. And of course, I'm talking about Bitcoin Well. Buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well. Self-custody by default, future-proof your money. That's right. When you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, it's automatic self-custody. You can't buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well unless you're going to take self-custody. You have to put your address, you buy it, it goes directly to self-custody, and that perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state, because after all, self-custody is the revolution. Guys, support self-custody by default platforms like Bitcoin Well. It's the first one in the United States. All you got to do to get started is go to bitcoinwell.com/simply. You put in your email. Oh, wait, they updated the website.
You need an update. There you go.
Boom. That's right. Look at that. Beautiful website. Buy real Bitcoin on bitcoinwell.com/simply. All you got to do is you go to the website, you put in your email, and you get started. The verification is incredibly fast. It's easy. And guys, I absolutely love this platform. Go check it out. Anyways, all right, everybody, let's move on to the numbers. We have a lot to talk about today. Let's check it out. Here we go.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. All right, everybody, I made it incredibly easy for you guys. You could scan the QR code on your screen. It'll take you directly to the Stamp Seed website. I see this a lot in the comments. No, you don't send your seed to Stamp Seed. They literally send you a Stamp Seed storage kit so that you could stamp it into titanium in the privacy of your own home, right? And then you don't have to explain to your grandchildren why you lost your generational wealth. That'd be horrific. Could you imagine 30 years down the road and they're like, Grandpapa, are you gonna give us your Bitcoin? It's like, no, I lost it because I put it on paper for some reason. Well, don't put yourself in that situation. Get yourself a Stamp Seed kit, and if you use promo code SIMPLY, you get 15% off. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 65,250 sats per dollar, 1,533. The market cap of Bitcoin, 1.28 trillion with a T, declined from all-time high 11.5%. That means, guys, you got a discount. Pause the show right now. Go to bitcoinwell.com/simply and start stacking those sweet, sweet Satoshis. Block height, 840,000, 670,000. Halving estimate, March 16, 2028. Realized monetary inflation, 1.72%. But this is my favorite number after the halving. It's just going to keep cutting in half forever, Laura. Forward monetary inflation, 0.85%. Take that, Christine Lagarde. Take that, Jay Powell. Wow, Bitcoin's inflation rate. It's beautiful. And it's going to get cut in half 4 years from now. Even more beautiful. Annual mining revenue, $14.2 billion. Money supply, 19,689,377 Bitcoin. Currently the circulating supply. All right, everybody. So I do want to talk about...
Wait, Nico, sorry. I know you get mad when I cut you off, but there is a new number in there. Go to the Clark Moody's dashboard, and there's a good number of Bitcoin priced in gold. I absolutely love that number. They updated. I don't know exactly. I can barely read this going up here.
Bitcoin price in gold. We have added it to favorites.
There you go.
Bitcoin price in gold, 28 ounces. That's a special one. And should we do the Bitcoin versus gold market cap as well?
Yes.
I think we should definitely add that one as well, just to kind of rub it into Peter Schiff's face. Okay. Awesome. All right, everybody. So the Bitcoin hash rate, I want to talk about this because... Bitcoin's kind of special in the sense that, the hash rate continues to make all-time high after the halving. That tends to be a good sign. And the reason it tends to be a good sign is because it takes a tremendous amount of money to deploy miners, especially if you start to do it on a large scale. So when the hash rate goes up, goes parabolic like it has been, that tells me that the smart money, that people that are looking for kind of like a longer term play in Bitcoin are extremely bullish about its future, even with the halving, right? So miners are literally making half of what they were making like a month ago. Hash rate continues to make all time high. And this is kind of, it's a little bit, some people might not feel good when I say this. Some people might disagree, but I come from the school of thought that the hash rate leads price. Some people might disagree with me. Here is the infamous China ban, by the way. You see this kind of fall off a cliff for the audio listeners. The Bitcoin hash rate literally dropped by 50%. And again, that was right when that was happening right during Bitcoin's parabolic rise. So that was in the middle of the bull market that happened. And the hash rate dropped 50% and the price followed. Right. But, within 9 months, the hash rate recovered, the price recovered. It kind of did like this double top. But I really think that the first initial mining ban really took the momentum out of Bitcoin. But it's gone parabolic ever since. And that just tells me that these miners, just a lot of people. Look, we told you about the Kingdom of Bhutan, right? Where they had 100 megawatts worth of mining capability and capacity. And they increased it from 100, they increased it to 600. And this was happening when the halving was around the corner. So just to kind of give you an idea, look, if people didn't feel optimistic about Bitcoin's future, then this wouldn't be a case. And let's compare it with everything else, right? So let's put on Bitcoin Cash in here. Let's put Monero. Let's put Zcash. Let's put BSV. You see those little lines on the bottom that you could barely see? That is the hash rate of those other coins. And as you could tell, they've literally just gone sideways, right? So even let's put Doge in here, right? Let's put Dash. You guys get the general gist of it, right? Bitcoin has by far the most amount of computational power actively mining and therefore kind of protecting the network. And that's what makes it the most secure. Anyways,
wait, Nico, I'm colorblind. I can't even see those. Dude, they're on the chart.
They're literally so tiny, brother, that they're literally tiny little specks.
I'm joking. I can see them.
They're literally tiny little specks, bro. Okay. Anyways, so 13 years ago, Satoshi Nakamoto announced he moved on to other things. So it was April 23rd, 2011. I'd have a few other things on my mind, as always. One is, are you planning on rejoining the community at some point, code reviews, or is your plan to permanently step back from the limelight? I've moved on to other things. It's in good hands with Gavin and everyone. I do hope your Bitcoin J continues to be developed into an alternative client. It gives Java devs something to work on, and it's easier with a simpler foundation that doesn't have to do everything. It'll get critical It'll get critical mass when implemented. New users can get started using it while the other one is still downloading the blockchain. So very kind of interesting. I've moved on to other things, you know, never kind of heard from Satoshi again. Anyways, this is the video on what I wanted to talk about. And it kind of relates to the theme that I was talking about in the beginning of the show in regards to the disintermediation of information and disintermediation of money, right? And it's very exciting times. Just like it was predicted in the book, The Sovereign Individual, the internet would enable this. It would connect the world on a mass scale. And here you have currently the two most popular broadcasters on the face of the planet discussing this exact topic. Let's check it out.
What's interesting is that there are people saying that now. And I think that's a relatively new thing in terms of mainstream media. And I consider what you do on X mainstream media. I mean, this is what we're on right now is essentially mainstream media. It used to be, you could call it, there's corporate controlled media.
I agree.
And that used to be mainstream media. Mainstream media used to be CNN. It's not really anymore. Mainstream media is what, in terms of the volume consumed, more people are consuming things on Twitter, on X, than there are on anything else. They're consuming information through the internet, through YouTube, for good or for bad, whether it's correct or incorrect. They're consuming information in different forms now than ever before. So more people are saying what you're saying than have ever said it before. And when people lie and when people bullshit and gaslight, it's more offensive now than it's ever been before because there's so much access to truth. That it's just, you could see it now. If you're paying attention, if you're not a boomer who only reads the newspaper, you pay attention and you see it and you go, this is horse shit.
But it's like, I guess what bothers me is that the lies aren't sophisticated.
No.
I mean, I look back over my now sort of long life and I'm recognizing all the times that I was lied to, but, you know, I didn't know I was being lied to. They kind of pulled it off. Mm-hmm. There's something incredibly insulting and demeaning to tell me a lie when I know it's a lie, and you know I know it's a lie. We both know it's a lie, but you're demanding that I pretend to believe it?
Right.
What you're really saying is, I have no respect for you. You're like my dog.
Right.
You're a slave. Like, I'm demanding that you participate in my lie.
And, okay, what they just said just uncovered so much in this short amount of time, okay? And what the reason that's happening, and they kind of touched upon this a little bit, is because they used to be able to get away with it. And then all of a sudden, right, you have the masses kind of awakening and saying like, wait a second, like you're telling me that inflation is going down, but things are getting more expensive. Like, what are you telling me? This is why they tried to release the part of Homeland Security, the disinformation board, right? This is why the U.S. government was tapping on Twitter to censor certain types of speech. They were doing that with YouTube as well. Is because they were losing their ability to control the narrative on a mass scale. And if you're this massive behemoth of an operation, right? The U.S. government employs 10 million people. It's a giant bureaucracy, right? And you've been used to being able to convince your populace. I mean, remember back in 2000 with the weapons of mass destruction, right? And if you've been used to being able to operate in that faction, and then all of a sudden kind of like the Zoomers or millennials on TV are just flipping through TikTok and they're saying like, yo, Joe Rogan is saying those aliens are effing real, bro. You know, like they're saying that this inflation stuff is bullshit. Like, yeah, I mean, if you've been used to operating a certain way and all of a sudden people are just fact checking you in real time, like you're Elizabeth Warren saying some stuff and you're getting community noted, you're Christine Lagarde and you're getting community noted in real time telling you like CBDCs aren't really necessary, that could actually lead to some tyrannical BS. Like, yeah, if you were the people in power, I would hate that too. Right? Like I would be pissed off. I'd be like, no, we have to go back to the old system. The problem that they have is that once you open that box, like it's not going back in. Like we're not going backwards in this sense, right? Even if they do end up like co-opting Twitter and capturing Twitter again, in a sense, this is where you have protocols like Nostr. Good luck. You're not going to have the ability to censor dissenting speech, and then that inevitably becomes a forcing function. And I'll add the disintermediation of money into this in a second. And the reason it becomes a forcing function is because if you can't censor it, you're forced to have to debate it. But if what you're advocating for is so horrific that you can't even stand behind it with good arguments, you can't really force people the stuff that you wanted to force people, you wanted to force feed people on before. And now include money into all of this. Right. So that's just information, right? The battle for that is happening right now. We're like in the thick of things. I think it's going to start to escalate more and more. But what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years is that people are going to wise up and they're going to say just how they're seeking alternative sources of information. They're going to start seeking alternative sources of money. And here's the thing. That is their source of power. That is how they fund the whole thing. Right? So how do you think they're going to react to that? They're not going to react very good to that, are they? They're going to be like, holy shit, people are waking up to this reality. And this is where it comes down to us. Remember what Joe and Tucker was just saying. Remember what we've been saying. You are the media now, Anon. Like you have the ability. Leverage the internet to get your message out. Now, what I think is going to happen is I think that they're not going to like this very much as more and more people start to say, you know what, we don't need more efficient payments, which is what you're trying to convince us of to kind of launch these CBDCs. What we really need is a money that is censorship resistant and can't be debased. And here's the thing, they can't offer you that. Because if they were to offer you that, the whole racket, the gig, them waving effing flags of a foreign country in Congress and celebrating sending another $16 billion, $60 billion of which we can't afford, all of that goes away like that, right? So this is the separation of money and state. But, after this, I would say this isn't just the separation of money and state. This is the separation of information and money and state. That's what's happening. That's what we're living through. It's extremely exciting because I think once we get over the bump and people start to come to the realization that these forever wars are funded by fiat, they're funded by the dollar, I think you're going to have a peaceful revolution on the streets. And I think you're going to start to see a lot of people on a mass scale start to not only ask for another system, but just take action and opt out entirely, right? Anyways, that's my take. Opti, what's your take on all this?
Yeah, well, first, I do kind of want to touch on the Satoshi quote and the fact that he left 13 years ago. The first thing that kind of came to mind was like, I really wonder what other things Satoshi is doing right now. Not that I really care who he is. It's just it'd be interesting to know like what he finds more interesting than Bitcoin. And then there's one thing there that didn't age well. And everyone in the chat is kind of talking about it. But the last thing he signed off was like Bitcoin's in good hands with Gavin Andreessen. And that just didn't age well. I think if you know anything about Bitcoin, you know that one didn't age well. Anyways, going back to that clip, there's a few things in there that I really enjoyed. And, I told Nico about this and he's like, no, I didn't catch that clip. And it's really something we've been talking about here on Simply Bitcoin for a while, is that we are the culture now, guys. Like we are the media. Peer-to-peer communication is super important. And I think we need to not underestimate the power we have as every one of us is communicating peer-to-peer. Even if you're on Twitter, it's still peer-to-peer communication. You can have these debates, these arguments. You can pass information to your friends and family. And SB, Simply Bitcoin's really been ahead of the game. I think now we're the delay from what we say getting onto quote unquote mainstream media is like a couple of months now, Nika. So we're doing a pretty good job here spreading the signal. Obviously, Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson aren't watching Simply Bitcoin, but it just goes to show that we, are on top of the signal and you just love to see it. And then another thing, Joe says what we say all the time here, rather what I say all the time here on the show is, and he said it perfectly, you know, corporate controlled media, that is what legacy media is. I think anyone that watched Simply Bitcoin knows that we constantly hit on that same framing. We always talk about the idea that what you're coming out from the big news outlets, it's all corporate propaganda. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it really just goes back to what we've been saying all the time. Like, we really have the ultimate power right here. We constantly quote the Mike Benz, Tucker Carlson interview that I highly suggest everyone go watch. If you haven't watched this, it really is mind opening. But, you know, again, and then kind of just, I did write a note down, and I want to play it again because Tucker Carlson, actually not play it again. I want to bring this up. Tucker Carlson hit on this, and we always constantly reference this quote here. And I don't know how to say his name, Nico. I know you're better at saying his name.
So Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and essentially this, you have to give a little bit of context of who this person was. So he wrote this book called The Gulag Archipelago. And essentially, it kind of exposed all the atrocities that were happening in the Soviet Union. And it's very interesting, and the New York Times kind of plays into this as well, because there was by the way, I really recommend this movie. It's called Mr. Jones. But essentially, in the early days of the Soviet Union, there's this correspondent called Walter Duranty, right? And he was based in Moscow, and he was called Stalin's guy. And essentially, he would tell the Western world the approved narrative of what was happening in the Soviet Union. And it was only after many, many decades that it was exposed that this guy actually covered up the whole the Holodomor, which essentially was this mass famine of the Ukrainian people. Millions of people died. And the guy actually provided air cover. And you know what publication he used to provide air cover? The New York Times. And you know he won a Pulitzer for it? Just like the author who wrote that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, which turned out to be false as well. She won a Pulitzer Prize for that as well, right? It's kind of, you know, history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. And his Pulitzer Prize, Walter Duranty's, still hasn't been pulled away. I highly recommend watching this movie called Mr. Jones. And it's about a reporter that actually went into the Soviet Union, actually reported on what was actually going on. And he was murdered for it. They killed him for that. So just to kind of give you an idea of how long the legacy media has been doing this, you can make a good argument on that. Anyways, so I'm getting sidetracked. Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote a book called The Gulag Archipelago, and he was a Soviet citizen. He fought in World War II. He was captured. They sent him to the quote unquote gulags. The reason it's called the Gulag Archipelagos is these massive camps all over kind of like Siberia, the cold parts of Russia. And in the Gulag Archipelago, he started basically describing the insanities of communism, like the fact that they were just lying, the inefficiencies, the fact that they were just murdering people. And he really just uncovered that for the world to see. And I highly, highly recommend that book. He had a tragic life. He ended up dying from cancer. But, you know, he did write this book that left this legacy that really opened the eyes of the West to the atrocities that was actually happening in this totalitarian state. Anyway, so this is a very famous quote that he wrote, and he says, "We know they're lying. They know they're lying. They know we know they're lying. We know they know we know they are lying, but they're still lying." And just kind of apply that to what is happening in the corporate media and what is happening in the West today, right? Yet on yesterday's episode, I called the New York Times the kind of American version of Pravda, which was the Soviet Union's official newspaper. But that's essentially what they are. Like, I showed you guys a headline yesterday. I forget, it was like Dylan Leclerc or something like that. I posted it. It was basically like, look, like, inflation is a good thing. Like all these crazy headlines, like they try to convince us that, Bitcoin miners are bad for the environment. So like, again, like this is quote unquote, the paper of record. These are quote unquote professional journalists. And I think what the internet has uncovered, which is what Tucker and Joe Rogan were talking about is that they're nothing more than professional propagandists. That's what they are, these organizations. That's what we've discovered. Like, you know, me and Opti we were like, there's absolutely no way that we're more accurate in our reporting than these legacy media institutions. We're just two like millennials that just started a YouTube channel. There's absolutely no way. But what we've come to uncovered over the last 3 or 4 years that we've been doing this is that, holy shit, like these people are lying. Like they're really they're not in the business of telling the truth and reporting the facts. They're really in the business of propagating acceptable narratives, you know? But I think people are waking up to that fact. And I think this is the quote that Tucker was trying to reference when he was talking to Rogan.
Yeah, 100%. Or rather, I don't know if he was trying to. He just straight up said it. But before I pass it up to Derek, who is a Nostr advocate, I would be remiss if I didn't add to the idea that even Joe Rogan is dunking on boomers. So you lay off me for dunking on boomers. Anyways, Derek, jump in. What's your thoughts on all this?
Well, I think that this all plays together perfectly with what Nostr actually is. You know, Nico was talking about, you know, censorship resistant technology and money, you know, which is Bitcoin, and talking about legacy media, corporate media, and that's exactly what Nostr fixes, because we can't truly have the ability and the freedom to transact until we have the freedom and the ability to communicate. So Nostr is that communication layer, because right now, for example, if I wanted to send money to you, Opti, or to you, Nico, I would maybe message you on, let's say, Twitter or, you know, Facebook, Instagram, whatever medium, whatever platform I would use. And I have to assume that I'm talking to you, that the message isn't getting intercepted, that you are actually sending me your Bitcoin address or your Lightning address. There's no cryptographic proof. There's no identity that isn't controlled. And Nostr gives us that, where we are in control of our identity. We are in control of our communication. I can communicate with you, and then I can use my free speech to transact. So Nostr and Bitcoin have this beautiful relationship. But then beyond the transacting, beyond Bitcoin, right? Like, we're still using the majority of people that understand this, that understand that legacy media is, you know, corporate controlled media. They're still using their tools. Right? That's the same thing as saying we recognize that they're lying and they continue to lie. Well, we recognize that these corporate entities are bad, and then we still use their tools. Nostr literally fixes all of that for us and gives us censorship resistant tools for communication and, you know, for media. Like it's so much more than just, you know, a Twitter clone or a Twitter alternative, right? There's so many more things like audio communication and videos and blogging and creating. Like, it's Nostr is so much more than that, and I really want people to really understand that it enables us to take back media from these legacy platforms and legacy entities without just saying that we should do it. It literally gives us the tools to do it. So, you know, I really think that people that understand the problems with corporate media, you know, need to look into other tools out there that allow them to play outside of these controlled narratives and controlled boxes. So your speech can't be used for propaganda, right? You're in control of your own speech, again, with Nostr.
Love it.
I think that's the key, right? The key is you can't be censored, right? You can't be censored. It's not like, oh, you know, Elon took over the platform, so it's a little bit more pro free speech, whatever. But still, you can be censored. You can be deplatformed still. You can be deplatformed on all these social media platforms versus, you know, on Nostr, you can't, right? You cannot, like, you're there, right? It's not going anywhere, right? And I think that's really, you know, the advantage of these protocols, including Bitcoin, including Nostr, is that you can't just censor someone. You can't stop them from transacting. And you can make an argument that money is a form of speech, right? So yeah, I think it's incredibly important what you just said. And I think that as governments become more tyrannical, as governments continue to try to hold on to their monopolies on information and money, I think these freedom tools, like Odell calls them, I think they're going to dramatically increase in popularity, because people are just they're just gonna say, look, like I like you're trying to force feed me something, but still doesn't mean I'm not gonna believe it. Like, if you're trying to force feed me something, that tells me even more that I shouldn't believe it, right? Anyways, we got Brian DeMint in the chat. Anyways, all right, everybody, let's get to news. We have a lot to talk about today. Let's check it out. Here we go.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more. All right, everybody. I'm holding it in my hands. The Passport by Foundation Devices. Remember, guys, not your keys, not your cheese. It's probably a pretty good idea to get yourself a Bitcoin hardware wallet. It's completely open source, incredibly easy to use. You can pair it up with the Envoy app, and it makes spending Bitcoin from cold storage incredibly easy. Can't recommend it enough. Guys, check out the Passport by Foundation Devices. You could scan the QR code, or you could check the link in the video description. All right, let's get to today's news. So let's talk about Standard Chartered, which is the bank that apparently an analyst made this prediction from. Again, guys, when a public company or someone associated with a public company starts making these types of predictions, and they start saying these things about Bitcoin, it tells you two things. Thing number one is that company probably stands to benefit from number go up. So what exposure do they have to Bitcoin? Do they own a lot of MicroStrategy? Do they own a lot of these ETFs? Are they offering this to their clients? You don't just say this for free. Like, you don't just go, oh, I think Bitcoin's going up 150%. I think Bitcoin's going 150K because blah, 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 blah. Like, it isn't just some anon on Twitter, posting price predictions. It's someone who is associated with a publicly traded company, this being a publicly traded bank called Standard Chartered. So anyways, I'm going to play you guys the clip. Here it is. We actually posted it on the Simply Bitcoin Twitter account, which, by the way, you guys should follow. It's one of the best news aggregators out there right now. Anyways, let's check it out.
Bitcoin leverage positions were liquidated. So the market is now looking much more square going into the halving, if you like, in terms of leverage. So that's very helpful. So hopefully we can get through the halving tonight, get some slightly more positive news out of the Middle East, which would be fantastic. And I suspect that can then see Bitcoin start to retrend higher. I'm still looking for $150,000 by the end of this year. So less important on the halving, but from where we are now, it's starting to look like we can push higher again.
I'm going to reiterate what you just said. With Bitcoin trading below 65,000, your year-end forecast 150,000 per coin for Bitcoin and 200,000 by the end of 2025. What are the specific reasons for your expectations that we'll see a notable lift from here?
So part of it is those ETF inflows. As I mentioned, they've stalled for now, but I anticipate going from the start of this year to when the ETF market in the US is mature, we'll get between 50 and $100 billion of inflow. So far we've had 12 billion, as I mentioned earlier. Now, I suspect that can now happen over about an 18-month to 24-month period. When that happened for gold, when we went in the US from no spot ETF market in 2004 to that market gradually maturing, the price of gold multiplied by 4.3 times. So that could get us to that 150 to 200,000 range as sort of input number one. Input number two is over time when you have enough investors, i.e. investors are fully sated in terms of their Bitcoin exposure, which hasn't been the case before the ETFs, but over time, if we get those ETF flows in, that should be where we end up. In terms of a portfolio between Bitcoin and gold, you should get to about 80% gold, 20% Bitcoin. And for that, even if gold prices were to go sideways again, that gets you to that $150,000 to $200,000 mark in terms of Bitcoin. So there's a few factors that are all driving to roughly the same level. I think medium term, if we get to 200,000, because of the institutional flows as well, it's much more likely that Bitcoin won't have a large retracement, which it did have in previous cycles. So again, that halving cycle story becomes slightly less important.
Jeff, we could talk all hour.
So, I mean, I'm going to pass it on to the panel. I mean, that's a pretty good analysis. It is speculation at the end of the day. But it's just so interesting because, before the people that used to do that were just, anon YouTubers, right? And now you have people that are part of these large financial institutions kind of, speculating on the future price of Bitcoin and stuff. And, I find that fascinating. Like, boy, has this industry matured? Have we come a tremendously long way? And I still think the best is yet to come. I think hyper Bitcoinization. And I remember I was talking to Jeff Booth on Simply Bitcoin IRL, and we were just basically talking about hyper Bitcoinization. We were talking about this world on a Bitcoin standard. And guys, I've been in Bitcoin for a pretty long time, 8 years now. And I still it's unimaginable for me. We can talk about it, we can theorize it. But it's still kind of it's still unimaginable because we have nothing to compare it to. We've been fighting for this for so long, but we like to document every single one of these moments, and they're absolutely historic, right? The Fox News anchor yesterday, the MMA fighter, you have the disintermediation of information. You have Joe Rogan, Tucker, you have Tim Pool basically, talking about Bitcoin, how he has exposure to Bitcoin. So it's slowly but surely, the mainstream consciousness is kind of waking up to the benefits of NGU. And you have someone who's associated with a publicly traded bank, making price predictions, saying that, he expects the price of Bitcoin to be at 150K by the end of the year, which is absolutely bonkers. But at the same time, not really surprising if you understand Bitcoin's incentives. Anyways, we have 1,000 people watching live between YouTube and X, and we have another 60 or so of you guys watching us live on Rumble. So if you guys are enjoying the show, make sure to smash that like button. Really, really helps with the algos. We got 115 likes, 119 likes on YouTube. Those are rookie numbers. We can get up to 150. Really, really helps push the orange signal forward. So anyways, I'm going to pass it on to Opti, and then we'll get Derek's opinion.
Yeah, I want to cover this comment right here by Keith. This is great. He goes, "I love hopium, especially from TradFi guys in a sweater vest." I love it. But on that note, that's absolutely bearish. 150K by the end of the year. Yeah, it sounds great. I don't know where the price is going, but just love to hear them start to speculate on Bitcoin. It makes the rounds out there. Shouts out to people that still watch the legacy corporate press. Everyone knows it's basically the boomers. So, hey, if they catch the FOMO bug, I am all for it. But I did see this tweet, Nico. Let me pull this up, by Charles Edwards. And this is something we've been kind of covering for a while. And these are the numbers. Here's Charles Edwards. He's from, I don't know how to say his company, Caprioli, I think. Capriol. He's got a fund and it basically trades Bitcoin. He's got a lot of good metrics on his site too. And he goes, the Bitcoin halving is priced in. He should have it all capped, all weird. But so few people really understand the math coming out of here and what happens after the halving. And he's got this chart here and it goes Bitcoin price performance 365 days after the halving. And again, I'm extremely colorblind, so I can't really tell which one's which, but we got halving one. I'm pretty sure it's this one, the top one. We have halving two with this blue mark. So the halving one, epoch two, to 7,645% up on all-time highs. And then having 2, it's what is this? 292%. And then having 3, we had a measly 266%. So kind of doubling down and adding some more metrics. The TradFi guy in a vest is basically saying that we will see similar numbers to having 2 and having 3 with a 200x increase, which would basically be what, like a 2.5 time increase. Yeah,
2x.
it's like a 2x. So in what was I forget what Epoch 3 is. Is that 2020? It was almost a 3x last year, or rather last Epoch. We got 2.5x. So within these numbers, I think it's very safe to say that we will get an epic run by the end of the year. As people are saying in the chat, we have 7 months to basically break or at least get to 150K, which is roughly a 2.5x from here. And I think that's, I'll join my fan group. I think that's very conservative in my opinion. But, what do I know? All I know is infinity divided by 21 million, stack as many sats as humanly possible. This is the way, and love to see the Patagonia vest guys on television start to speculate a little bit, even if they are bearish. I'll take it. So who knows where the price is going, but all we do know is that number will go up, and all you really should care about is how many sats you have under your control. Make sure you're stacking, accumulating as much Bitcoin as possible, taking it into custody. As I keep saying, you're playing Hungry Hippo with Bitcoin. You want to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible, and this is how you win. Anyways, Derek, what's your thoughts on the speculation?
It's an accumulation game, right? There's only 2.1 quadrillion sats available. I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or not, but price action talk and macro talk is just some of the most boring aspects of Bitcoin to me. like we know where it's going given a long enough timeline, but it is cool, I guess, to see some type of validation from traditional legacy financial institutions that all the boomers and all of their wealth are currently tied up in, right? It kind of gives us validation because no one stacks sats, no one buys Bitcoin to lose money, right? We do it to preserve our wealth. We do it to opt out of the current financial system. We do it to grow our wealth and maintain our wealth. So it is nice to see validation on that because we're humans and we like to see that. But number wise, I have no clue where it's going. I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I would use it to go back in time when I was mining Bitcoin in 2009 and to stay with it. I wouldn't use it for current day price predictions. It's going up forever, Laura. That's probably true. And we just need to keep stacking in the meantime. And if we get some hopium from legacy financial institutions that onboard our aunts and uncles and grandparents and everybody that was bearish on Bitcoin before, then that's cool too. We get to witness kind of this global game theory play out with ETFs. That actually I think is kind of cool. That is actually interesting to me. And yeah, like the ticker says below, 10 million by 2024.
Oh man. Dude, so I kind of want to touch on that, which I think you buried the lead there, man, and I caught like the tail end of that conversation before we went on air. But so you're mining Bitcoin. What year was this?
Yeah. So back in the day when I still dabble in video games. When I was playing a game called World of Warcraft back in 2009. I had a friend in the game, a guild member, say, "Hey, check out this Bitcoin. You're an IT nerd. You're a tech guy. Check this out." And I downloaded it after a friend told me, and I installed it, and I ran it for months. And I had no clue what Bitcoin was. It was internet money, he told me. And I thought that was cool. Cool internet money. I like that, right? And I mined for, I don't know, it could have been 3-4 months or so. All I remember is seeing the notification that I had sent and received coins that I had found a block. I said it was CPU mining, block rewards for 50 Bitcoin back then. I remember seeing it. And after 3 or 4 months, I said, man, all this thing does is keep my office hot and run my computer 24/7. And I have to turn it off when I want to raid. Like, You know, like I'm addicted to playing WoW right now. I want to raid all the time, so let me just uninstall this thing. And then I fucked off for a few years, and then Dogecoin came out, and I'm like, hey, that's like that Bitcoin thing I used to mine. All right, I'll do that again. So I mined Dogecoin in like 2013, but for some reason I knew that Bitcoin was better than Dogecoin, so I sold my Dogecoin for Bitcoin, and then like I remember in 2014, like bear market steps in, and all of a sudden my value of like my dollar value of my Bitcoin starts dropping. I'm like, I better sell it. You know, and I sold, and then I didn't care about Bitcoin again for like another 6 years until monetary policy started doing some weird stuff in 2020 and started looking into Bitcoin a little bit more and what money actually was. And well, you know, I'm happy to say that I'm here now, but man, I like to joke and say if Derek from 2009 had maybe stayed with it and actually realized what he was doing, you know, we'd be doing this podcast from my island or something. I don't know. It'd be a little different.
Yeah, I mean that story is actually something that I've heard like a lot from a lot of OGs, which is a lot of people, myself included, right? Like not 2009, but like I think it was like 2014, 2015. I was using Bitcoin to buy certain goods on the internet.
Certain goods, right?
Doxed.
And I did not see it as a store of value. I was just like, oh, like I need Bitcoin to do this thing. And I had no effing idea. And then it wasn't only till, 2016 that I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should like hold on to this. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's interesting how that works. You're not the first person that's told me this, Derek. I've heard this story many, many times from people. They first exposure to Bitcoin was like very, very early. But it wasn't until like a couple years down the road that they're just like, okay, maybe it's a good idea to hold on to this. Anyways, guys, before
I used to, one last comment here. So back in the day, I mean, I guess still today, I used to, when I would disassemble the computer and build a new computer or whatnot, I would always take apart the hard drives, and I would use the platters in the drives to make a mirror, basically like a metal mirror. And I like to joke and say, that sadly, I probably had, millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin that was turned into a mirror in my old basement many years ago. Like those drives are very, very long gone. Like I looked for them years ago, and like they've been long destroyed and turned into mirror artwork over a decade ago. So there's no hope. I can't go crawl around a landfill like that one dude in the UK is doing.
Well, I think the community, thanks you for
my donation.
Thanks you for your donation for everyone else.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, before we move on to the culture, I do want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, the Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. The Orange Pill app is the Bitcoin social layer. You can scan the QR code or check the link in the video or podcast description. It will take you directly to download the Orange Pill app. Join the 10,003 Bitcoiners that are currently on the app. If you move to a new city or you're traveling and you want to see the Bitcoiners who are around you geographically, you could pull up the Orange Pill app, and it will allow you to see who's near you. It will allow you to send them a message, and also the #1 resource for creating Bitcoin-only events. Also, it has a very clever filtration system, so you really only find Bitcoiners on the app, other like-minded individuals. It's really, really clever how they did that. Simply Bitcoin has its own Simply Bitcoin Orange Pill group app. You can join it. Opti and I try to message every single one of you guys. We try to be as active as much as possible. So if you guys want to connect with other fellow like-minded individuals, fellow Bitcoiners, I highly recommend downloading the Orange Pill app today. Again, scan the QR code or check the link in the video description. Let's get to the culture.
The Daily Culture.
All right, everybody. I also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Rex. They are the most trusted place to buy, sell, and host mining equipment. Check out their racks today by scanning the QR code or checking the link in the video description. That will take you directly to their Telegram marketplace where you can connect with a member of their sales team. They make purchasing their products easy and transparent. You could also sell your mining equipment with them, access their vast network of domestic and international customers when you sell your mining equipment with Kaboom Racks. What are you waiting for? Start your Bitcoin mining journey today. This is where I personally buy my Bitcoin mining ASICs. Check out Kaboom Racks today. Scan the QR code or check the link in the video/podcast description. Opti.
Yeah. Well, I thought you were going to say more. I thought you were going to say more. Derek, you did start with your Bitcoin rabbit hole story. So I don't want to rehash that because we just covered it. But I think there is like a good signal there. And it's kind of the idea that we talked about before the show that so many people wish that they could go backwards in time and get into Bitcoin early. But it's kind of what Nico was saying. Most of us probably wouldn't have made it if we got in early. And now is most likely the best time, or rather the most de-risked time to get into Bitcoin. So maybe as someone that's been around for a while, we'll start there and then we'll go into Nostr and everything you're working on.
Yeah, sure. So, I kind of gave my origin story. I don't need to rehash that out a few minutes later. But one thing that I like to say is that, looking back, some people will say, "Man, do you wish that you would have stuck with it?" Or "Man, your life would be different," or all this other things. And I like to try to live my life by saying, it is what it is. This is how it should be. I'm going to make the best of what I have now. Sure, things could have been different. Sure, I would have liked to have stuck with it and been in Bitcoin for much longer than I currently am, but I'm not, and I'm making the most of what I can now, doing what I can now to stack furiously because I know where this is going and where this is headed. So I think that people that are coming around this cycle, I see posts on Nostr and Twitter and Reddit and people saying things along the line of, is now a good time to buy? Is, $60,000, $70,000, how much further is it going to go? Man, I'm so late, but I want to get in, and I look at it and say, well, every time somebody starts buying Bitcoin, they fast forward whatever time frame that is, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years, whatever. They always say, I wish I would have bought more. I've never heard once somebody saying, man, I bought too much. Like you just don't hear that. So anyone that's looking to get in now at the beginning of a new cycle, think what your future self is going to think. Put in a little bit, start stacking. That's where I'm at it, and that's what I tell my friends and family when I try to orange pill them. I've only been able to do that only on a couple people, unfortunately, but I think a lot of us are kind of in the same boat. But that's boring Bitcoin talk. Let's talk.
Let's pivot to Nostr talk.
Yeah,
Okay, so why are you such a huge Nostr advocate? And I'm super glad that you got on today, considering everything we're talking about. So let's double down on that. Why are you a Nostr advocate?
So I joined Nostr December 2022 whenever Jack Dorsey had said on Twitter, hey, I want to fund some things. What open source projects need funding? And people started recommending different projects like Signal and Graphene OS. And someone said Nostr. And then all these Bitcoiners start talking, hey, yeah, Nostr needs funding. And well, what the hell is Nostr? And then Jack Dorsey says, hey, Bitcoin Twitter, you should check out Nostr. And a lot of the ethos with Bitcoin aligns with what Nostr is and what Nostr means. And I dove right in, really understood what freedom technology meant, what it can mean for the world, what it means for people outside my social circle, what it means for people all around the world that live in oppressive, tyrannical governments and regimes that they don't have the same privileges and speech that we do. So Bitcoin and Tor and now Nostr really have these like symbiotic relationships with one another. And so I really started looking into what social media really does to people and why Nostr can be a breath of fresh air and why it is good to be able to control our social graph and control our data. And it's just really, really, really cool. Think as content creators yourselves, you sign into Twitter, you sign into YouTube, you sign into Rumble, whatever platforms you're using, you have different followers on every single platform that you use. And how cool is it that if you were using different ecosystems, different protocols, that no matter what application you signed into, all your followers are there. All your content is all there. You can take it, your data, import it into whatever client you want to. That's super, super cool. We can't do that with social media right now. So Nostr ends up being this social glue that binds all of your apps and all of your social data together. And just thinking about what that can mean and how developers can build tools that are all interoperable together. If one developer adds a cool feature, another one can incorporate that into their application. It's just wild because we really can't do that permissionlessly today. And then when we start to do that, you have platforms such as Reddit or platforms such as Twitter X that revoke API access and literally rug all of their developers overnight. They do this all the time. It's wild. They bite the hands that feed them. Well, you can't have that happen on Nostr. So I really fell in love with what Nostr can really mean. And, I really saw how the same ethos of running your own Bitcoin node, because I've ran my own node for years, and that I can now run my own Nostr node. We call it a relay, but it's just a server, the same as a Bitcoin node. It's just a server that runs software, and you can run your own, and you can be sovereign in your own data. That's just really, really cool. So I started looking at ways. I'm not a developer. A lot of people think that I am because I'm tech savvy and I do some technical things. My fiat job is, I run a bunch of servers. I'm systems administrator, so I'm not a true full stack developer, but I can do little things here and there. And I started looking at ways that I could contribute to the Nostr ecosystem, and I realized that there was this cool Nostr feature that allows you to essentially register your long npub that is really hard and complicated to understand, to register it and give it a name, give it an email address or a lightning address. So we call those Nostr addresses, or a NIP05 ID, which is really nerdy and technical. So I don't like to use that anymore. But I found out that you could give this to any npub and they could register it, and it could be a pointer or a way to identify and easily search and find people on Nostr. So I created a service, nostrplebs.com, where I'm shilling with this t-shirt right now. And I started signing up some of my friends, and I thought I was going to have, a dozen friends or something like that, right? Like just getting a few people into it. And, word of mouth started to spread, and people started saying, "Hey, I want that cool Nostr address that you have. Hey, hey, where'd you get that? Hey, how'd you do that?" So I started selling these. Like I initially wasn't going to sell them. I was just giving them to like half a dozen friends, and then people started saying, "Hey, can I tip you? Can I pay you for this?" And I was like, "Oh, well, this is kind of like a business, I guess." Okay. And then, fast forward a year later, we have like 6,000 users that we've registered over the past year. And we have other services that we offer as well. Just really fell into that niche of using my fiat mining skills to enhance Nostr and provide support for people and help onboard as many people as possible. And then that just led me down the path of, apparently I like to talk a lot, and apparently I like to talk about Nostr a lot, and people for some reason like to listen. So I've been going all over the world over the past year, down to Costa Rica twice, to Europe twice, 2 more times this summer, talking about Nostr and all these different Nostr events and Bitcoin events and Bitcoin conferences, just speaking about Nostr and how we should onboard as many Bitcoiners as possible. Because if you understand Bitcoin and the need for Bitcoin, you should understand the need for Nostr. So that's what I've been working on over the past year and a half, and it's just really been life changing and very, very rewarding at the same time. I absolutely love it and look forward to being in Prague here in a month and a half at BTC Prague. I organized a Nostr booth for Prague, so we're going to have the largest booth in the Prague Expo area, where dozens of developers helped contribute. We have a few seed developers, seed applications that contributed the most to help fund this booth. And we're going to spend 3 days in Prague, trying to purple pill every single conference attendee, providing support, demos of all the different apps out there, and developers getting to meet their users. But then we also have Nostr content on the main stage, and then we have Nostr content on the side stage as well that I've been working on organizing for the past couple months, getting developers and content and schedule and everything. It's just things I've never done before, but all because of Nostr, I've been able to do all this, and it's wild. It's a lot of fun, and I hope it doesn't stop, because it's very, very exciting, and I can't wait to continue to do more of this.
Hell yeah, it's awesome, dude. Very, very cool. I think Nostr and the Bitcoin movement are synonymous. I think one needs the other, and I think it's incredibly important to spread the awareness of this protocol. So shout out to you for doing, we usually say shout out to someone for doing Satoshi's work, but shout out to you for doing
work.
The ostrich's work.
The purple ostrich's work. So yeah, man, it's incredibly cool. And look, bro, I gotta say something. Clearly you have an eye for identifying early technologies. I'm
going to stick with Nostr. I'm not going to abandon it and come back in a decade like I did with Bitcoin. Now, I learned my lesson.
Oh man.
Well, right. I do have a question. Actually, there's one question in the chat, but my favorite question to ask Nostr guys is: do you think Nostr can knock off Twitter's network effect?
Probably not now, but I would say eventually. Nostr needs something that is very exciting and unique. Like, we like to say zaps are the signal, and they are, but not everybody understands value for value. I would like them to, but not everybody understands that. I think data portability is very, very cool and very important, but most people don't care about that. Decentralization and censorship resistance is very valuable for the world. Most people don't care about that either. So we need some cool app that doesn't exist anywhere else besides Nostr. Once that happens, then I don't see an issue with the masses starting to see Nostr's potential. And then maybe a couple years down the road that happens. Maybe in 2 years, we see Elon saying, maybe we should turn Twitter into a Nostr relay. And you absolutely could. Twitter could become or X, whatever the hell it's called today. X could become the most customized Nostr client in Nostr relay, where users never see a set of keys, public key and private key. Twitter just manages all of that for you on their client, and all the content connects to Nostr. Basically, think of how Threads now uses the Fediverse or connects to the Fediverse. Elon could essentially do the same thing if he wants to pick a fight with his buddy Zuck. He could have Twitter interact with the Nostr protocol in the exact same capacity. Anybody could. Any existing application could.
Love it. Okay, and then one question in the chat. This one's from Z Logic. I guess he's having trouble with his Nostr relays, so he would like some Nostr relay tips.
Join Primal, bro.
Oh man, Primal's a good app. I've used the same relay, my personal relay, for like the past year and a half. I use NoStream. But are you talking about public relays, or are you talking about your own personal relay? I would say everybody can run their own personal relay. If you use like Start9 for your Bitcoin node, or Umbrel or my node, they have built-in relays that make it point and click really, really easy. You just install the app and then connect your client to it. But if you want to use like public relays, I personally use relayable.org, nos.lol, purplerelay.com. They're great relays, but I also like paid relays too, because I think that we should pay for services, and relay operators have bills that need paid. So I think it's okay to pay for some relays and have a mixture of both. And if you use Primal, they don't have a subscription service yet, but I think they're going to at some point in the near future. Damus also has Damus Purple, and paying for that is a good way to support the Damus relay and the Damus client as well. Like, developers like to eat and have bills, so zap your developers, zap your relay operators, pay for things from time to time.
Love it. Okay, and one more question. I think this might be a good way to slowly wind this down. We got Captain Banana, and he goes, how do you even get involved with Nostr?
Oh man! All right, so I like to say that everybody on Nostr can build in their own way, right? You have developers that can build, you have content creators that can build, you have community builders that can build. The best way to get involved is, well, to figure out which category you fall into, and then just do it. You don't have to ask for permission to build. You can just go to GitHub, look at the protocol, and just start building your application. If you are a content creator, you can maybe visit flare.pub or highlighter.com and start posting your content there. Highlighter.com is kind of like a Patreon alternative. Blogging as well. Maybe obla.news for blogging. If you're a shit poster or a memer, just start posting, just start engaging. But since Nostr doesn't have any algorithms, the number one piece of advice I can give to anybody looking to use Nostr, so you don't feel like you're posting into the void, you should engage with people as possible, as often as possible, because there are no algorithms to bring content forward on most clients. So their user discoverability really sucks and doesn't exist. So we get back to this human layer where we have to be human and communicate with one another. So you need to reply to people that are following you and comment on your posts. You reply to their posts. You need to let people know that you are there and that you want to be social with them. Just be a human communicating with another human.
Boom.
Love it. Love
Bars.
it. Okay, Nico, I'm going to give Derek the last two sets. So, Derek, what is the last message you want to leave with the audience?
Oh man, I can chill? Okay, all right. So nosternest.com is my Nostr app. It's a replacement for Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces. You can go, you can sign in with your existing Nostr account. You can zap people that are up on stage. You can chat with people in the audience. nosternest.com.
Nosternest.com. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, decentralized protocols for social media, I think, is the future. And I think it's an absolute necessity, especially if governments continue down the road of censorship. Derek, thank you so much for joining us today on Simply Bitcoin Live. We really appreciate it. Guys, you guys could find Derek on the interwebs at Derek M. Ross and go to nosternest.com to find out more about his project. Anyways, guys, that was another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. If you enjoyed the show, smash the like button. Consider subscribing. I'm your host, Nico, my legendary co-host, Optimus Fields, and our guest for today, Derek. Hey, guys, if you want to help spread the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, share Bitcoin media, share Bitcoin culture, share freedom tools like Nostr Nests. That's how we win. We wake up people. We win over the hearts and minds of individuals, not left versus right. It's not red versus blue. It is orange versus green. Anyways, love you all. We'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
Episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, on a mission to enable independence.